यहाँ से ती फेर के आए पुरी नवतन चुगली बालबाई करी सुनाई हाकिम के कान संबत 1778 हुआ यह मजकूर सब सामा भैरावर में जिनको लिखी अंकुर जिनको लिखी अंकुर संबत 1778 बोले श्री धाम के धनी की जय कृष्ण कन्हैया लाल की जय Pranam, Pranam. On yesterday's discourse, we talked about Mahamati Prananath's journey to Arab. He went there to awaken Khetabai, but it so turned out that it took so long and he still remained unsuccessful in doing that. Because he didn't have the spirit of the consort of Paramdham, he could not be awakened, and the day before they decided to return to India, he passed away. So Prananath tries to get whatever he could collect that belonged to Khetabai back to India, but it didn't happen so easily. The chief of that town he conspires to kill Maharaj Thakur, Prananath, and take away all the belongings. But Prananath realizes that his life was in danger, so he goes to Baghdad, the capital of Iraq. And after months of attempts, it's basically said a couple of months, that he had to wait finally to meet the emperor, the king. And then he complains, and then the king said that he would do everything in his power to get back what belongs to Prananath. So when he comes back, it turns out that the chief of the city is not happy. He burns down the building. They go down, he burns all the belongings. So Prananath could not get the cash. So whatever's left of that fire, some gold and some silver, he sent it back with Bihariji and the son of Gangaji Bhai, Samji, to India, and he tells them that he would be back with whatever remaining that he could collect from the creditors and lenders, the borrowers actually. So when Bihariji and Samji find themselves at the shore of the sea, they drop the bag of gold and silver into the ocean, so everything that they brought is drowned. After a few months, after everything that Prananath could collect, he brings it with him back to India. And it turns out that Bihariji and Samji made a complaint to Satguru and Balbai that he kept all the belongings, all the possessions of Khetabai to himself. They were talking about Prananath. So Balbai goes and talks to Satguru Maharaj and complains that if you talk to him, if you receive and reciprocate to the salutations of Maharaj Thakur, then anything could happen. So Mahamati Prananath returns. Balbai also files a complaint to the king of Jamnagar saying that Maharaj Thakur is returning to India with the belongings, with the wealth of Khetabai. He's keeping it to himself. So either you seize whatever he brings back with him, or it should belong to me, he says. So as soon as Mahamati Prananath lands onto Jamnagar through the ship, is kept in the prison, and he's there for a month and a half, somewhere around that time. And finally, after all this struggle, all these uncertainties, all the work that he wanted to do, he came to Satguru with nothing on his hand, nothing to show for. He sent something with Bihariji and Samji, but he doesn't know if it reaches Satguru Maharaj or not. So on the year 1708, after 5 years of separation from the Lord Supreme that reside in the heart of Satguru Sri Devchandraji Maharaj, after 5 years of separation from his Guruji, Finally, he gets to meet Satguru Maharaj in 1708. He leaves for Arab in 1703. After 5 years, he is there. And as soon as he gets to Nautanpuri, he bows down to Satguru Maharaj. He touches his lotus feet. He greets him. But Prananathji's salutation is not accepted. Satguru turns away from Prananathji. He doesn't say a word. He does not reciprocate to the salutation of Prananathji. So Prananathji is devastated. He is hurt because he risked his life, because Satguru Maharaj asked him to go to Arab, awaken Kitabai and bring back what he could. He risked his life. The chief of the city nearly killed him. He conspired to kill him. And all the belongings of Kitabai were burned down by the Shree. That Mahamati Prananathji was not aware of, but he knew that it should have been the chief of the town. Mahamati Prananathji, after going through all that, comes to Satguru Maharaj, and Satguru Maharaj is not responding. He's not talking to him. He's not saying, how is everything? How was your trip? He didn't say a word. Mahamati Prananathji wants to share all the stories, his struggle, his challenges, what he went through in Iraq, in Arab, but Satguru Maharaj turned away from Prananathji. For that matter, he's so devastated because for 5 years, from 1703 to 1708, they were distant physically. Satguru Devchandraji was in Jamnagar, Gujarat, India, and Prananathji was in Arab. But Prananathji had the feeling of closeness with Satguru. He felt that Satguru was in his heart. Satguru was guiding him in all those ups and downs, all those challenging times from 1703 to 1708. He went to awaken Kitabai. It took him years. He was away from Sundar Sats. He was away from the Lord Supreme. And when he gets to Nautanpuri, although they are close, the distance is even greater. Prananathji waits and waits and waits, but Satguru Maharaj keeps turning away. He doesn't say a word. He's not looking at Prananathji. So when that feeling of desperation, devastation, Prananathji says to himself, unless Satguru Maharaj calls me himself, I'm not coming back to Nautanpuri. So from 1708 to 1710, for 2 years, Prananathji stays in his home. His parents have already passed away. He doesn't have anything to do. He meets some Sundar Sat. If you've been to Nautanpuri, the place where Prananathji was born, the home of Prananathji, and Nautanpuri Dham are pretty close in distance. They are probably 15 minutes apart in walking distance. So Prananathji meets Sundar Sats. He talks about Satguru when he meets the Sundar Sats, and they talk about the discourse of Satguru Maharaj and how they cherish his discourse. But Prananathji cannot go. For 2 years, it's nothing to do. Has nothing to do. Because he doesn't want to feel the same by trying to go to Satguru again. As Laldachi puts it, na ye ja sake, na wo bula sake. Neither Prananathji could go to Satguru Maharaj and his discourse into Nautanpuri, nor Satguru could call him. Because Satguru knew that he heard Prananathji. He saw Prananathji shedding tears, begging for Satguru's salutation, Satguru's words. Satguru knew that Maharaj Thakur Prananath was deeply hurt. So he could not call him either, and Prananath could not go because he thought he would not be able to handle another such instance. So from 1708 till 1710, he stays at home. And one day, his sister-in-law, the wife of his brother Syamalji, whom Prananath and his brother Govardhan Thakur once tried to beat because he said that he would expel Gangaji Bhai and Satguru from the city so that you guys, Maharaj Thakur and Govardhan, he said, you would be engaged, you would be supporting the family, you would earn something so that you would not be lost. So the sister-in-law, the wife of Syamalji, one day said, "Oh, Maharaj, you were the one, were you not, that when your brother Syamalji said something about Satguru Maharaj, that you wanted to kill him, you wanted to beat him. Now, where's your Satguru? You did not even talk about him. You did not go see him. What happened between you guys?" And she said, "The same brother whom you tried to beat because he talked something bad about Satguru, you're feeding off of him. He's the one earning things. He's the one making money. He's the one feeding the family. Does not it make you feel bad?" Oh, Prananath was deeply hurt with such harsh words of his sister-in-law. He thought that this is not the place for me either. He could not go to Nautanpuri in the lotus feet of Satguru, and he could not stay at his home because the family members were not receptive of him, especially his sister-in-law. So he leaves his home and he goes to Kalazi and becomes a minister yet again. From 1710 to 1712, he is engaged in the state affairs. He's engaged in these worldly matters. He works there. He's serving the community. He's serving the people of that town. He's doing what he can. But he's not happy with what he has to do. And here on the other side, Satguru Maharaj is worried about the fact that he doesn't know who is going to take the lead after he passes away. The lead of awakening these lost souls, 12,000 of them, and he could only awaken 313 of them in his lifetime. So there are so many still remain to be awakened. Satguru Maharaj keeps writing letters to Sri Krishna saying, "Sri Krishna, can you please tell me who is going to take a charge of awakening Sundar Sats after I pass away?" He keeps writing letters. He asked other Sundar Sats joining his discourse to write the letters too. यूं 69 पातियां लिखी हम धाम धनी पर, तब सखियां हम भी लिखी, पर नेक न दई खबर says Mahamati Prananath. He writes 69 letters to Sri Krishna asking for answers to the question that they want to know who is the successor of Satguru Maharaj in awakening Sundar Sats. But Sri Krishna does not respond to those questions. From 1710 till 1712, Devchandraji Maharaj, he could not call Prananath. Prananath is busy in his job, let's say. He is a minister. And around 1712, Satguru realizes that it's about time for him to leave this world. And he realizes that the door of Paramdham, the gate of Paramdham, is not open for him, because on the gate he finds Indravati crying. So he cannot get to Paramdham. He cannot find himself in Paramdham. He could not enter the gates of Paramdham. And it's about time that he's awakened in Paramdham. So he asked his associates, Balbai, Bihariji, and others to go ahead and call Prananath. इन समय श्री देवचंद्र जी की फिरी सूरत निजधामा बुलाए ल्याओ श्री महाराज को मेरे हजुर इस ठाम. So Devchandraji ji asked people to call Maharaj. And the first time Balbai goes and asks Maharaj Thakur that Satguru Maharaj is not feeling well. Why don't you come to Nautanpuri? Why don't you come to Satguru? And she does not say clearly that Satguru Maharaj is calling him. Satguru Maharaj really wants him in Nautanpuri. So Prananath ji responds that I will come after finishing this work. I'll come in few months. I'll come in few days. Whatever it is, that I'll come later. मैं काम छुड़ा के आवता हूँ शिताब. And again Bihari ji comes asking for some medications for Satguru Maharaj. Although Satguru Maharaj keeps telling them, please invite, please call Maharaj Thakur for me because I'm not being able to enter the gates of Paramdham. Magai kasturi ambara lai kari hazara मैं भी कदम उठले आवता हूँ फजरा. And Satguru Maharaj is not feeling well, so Bihariji comes and asks for the medicine. He gives it to him. Then he says, I'll come to meet Satguru Maharaj soon. And this way, Satguru Maharaj keeps sending someone to call Maharaj Thakur, but Maharaj Thakur Prananath ji is not properly told that Satguru Maharaj is not really feeling well. It's about time for him to awaken in Paramdham, and he's so desperately asking for Prananath ji to be there in Nautanpuri Dham. So the series of inviting Prananath ji and continues from Satguru Maharaj, but he is not given the proper information. Finally, after 8th attempt, Satguru Maharaj says, वो कहते सैयन को जिंदगी भाषा मो मुह मुह कोड़ मत्थन में बातें करो तिनशो जान हून कोड़ धड़ 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 कोड़ मत्थन मत्था मत्था कोड़ मुह 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 कोड़ जीवन ये तरह मिड़ी तो ही जाता जे गुण गंजना भाल तो ही जी ही करी तो के खीन पूजना. Finally, Satguru Maharaj says, I want Maharaj Thakur to be here right away. He is the one who always sang my glory, the one who always said that suppose there is an animal which has millions of heads, and in its head it has millions of bodies, and in millions of bodies are millions of heads, and in this one head there are millions of mouths. And if all of these combined sing the glory of Satguru Maharaj, they would still be unable to do so. So I want Maharaj Thakur, who used to glorify me like that, who always had a deep respect for Satguru, I would like Maharaj Thakur to be here now. श्री देवचंद्रजी के दिल में रही बाता टका फेर फेर कहीं बुलाओ श्री महाराज. So he keeps asking his associates to call Maharaj Thakur. Prananaji, and they give all different kinds of excuses that, oh, he's so busy, he said he would come back later, and blah, blah, blah. So all these weird responses, they do not properly communicate to Satguru Maharaj. And none of them specifically told that Satguru Maharaj is not well and he is asking Maharaj Thakur to meet him as soon as he can. Finally, Satguru Maharaj said, "Main dhama darwaze paith na sakun, thadi Indravati kare rutan." So Satguru Maharaj says, I'm not being able to enter the gates of Paramdham. It's about time for me to be awakened in Paramdham, but I'm not being able to do so. Please, 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 please call Maharaj Thakur, call Indravati. And finally Babai goes, talks to Maharaj Thakur, Prananath, and she says, Satguru Maharaj is constantly asking for you to meet him. But why don't you come? What's going on in your mind? That time, Prananath felt that it's about time that he goes to meet Satguru Maharaj, and he knew, he tells Balbai that, why didn't you guys tell me earlier that Satguru Maharaj is calling me? And they make another excuses. She makes another excuse, and finally, on the year 1712, after 9 years of separation from Satguru Maharaj, in the year 1712, Shravan Badi Ashtami, on the day of Sri Krishna's arrival in this world, on that day, on the Krishna Janmashtami Tithi, Milapa Shree Devchandraji so kaho baat zami says Lal Dasi. In 1712, the month of Bhadra, on the Krishna Janmashtami day, in the morning, after 9 years of separation, Prananath goes and meets Satguru Maharaj. Dear Sandarsaji, here's a lesson to learn. We've been living eternally in Paramdham, in the eternal glory of Aksharatit Sri Krishna. Now we are here in this world. We promised Raji Maharaj that we would not be forgetful of him, and that is something that we would never do. We would remind each other, in case we forget, that we are the souls of Paramdham. We would awaken each other. So we made these promises. Now, when we are awakened in Paramdham, if we are awakened with this forgetfulness in mind, without failure to fulfill that promise that we would awaken each other, then we would be there in Paramdham, yet we would have a distance with Raji Maharaj, because we could not fulfill what we promised. We did not do what we promised other consorts. So we would not be able to face Raji. Other consorts would make fun of us, because they would say, oh consort, oh Sakhi, you promised that you would remind me of Paramdham yourself. You would remind me of myself, Paramdham, in the eternal Leelas of Paramdham. But what happened? Once you got to the world, you became forgetful. What happened to your promises? And the consort would realize her mistakes. Just like when we are awake from our dream, we are awakened with some experiences of dream. When we have a good dream, we feel good that day. And when we have a nightmare, it bugs us too, at least for a few minutes, few moments. So the whole process of this, the whole effort of learning about Raji, whole effort of trying to be one with Raji, is to have a good feeling once we are awakened in Paramdham. If we lived awakened in this world, if we constantly remember Raji Maharaj, itahi baithe ghara jagiye dham purana manurata vai sabakam, in this material body, in this worldly existence of ours, if we realize Raji Maharaj and his presence in our lives, then when we're awakened, we feel good about ourselves. And we can talk to Raji Maharaj, and he cannot say, oh, you were forgetful of me. We can say, Raji Maharaj, as we promised, as I promised, I was always be mindful of you, your presence, this Paramdham. That is what it is. So from 1703 to 1708, although they seem to be far away, Satguru Maharaj and Prananath, they were closer in terms of the bonding, in terms of the connection between their hearts and soul. But when he got back in 1708, although they were 15 minutes apart from each other, there was no such feeling of closeness. So in 1705, finally, Prananath meets Satguru. And there is another lesson to learn here. Mahamati Prananath says, मेरे मीठे बोले साथ जी हुआ तुम्हारा काम प्रेम में मगन हुइयो खुला दरवाजा धाम सखीरी धाम जाइयो. So Satguru Maharaj hurt the feelings of Prananath. Like I said, he risked his life. He followed the orders of Satguru Maharaj to go to Arab in a land that he had never been before by himself. For 40 days, he was in the ship, not knowing whether he would ever reach Arab or he would survive. Because the wind, the current of the wind would shake the ship. 40 days, not knowing where they would land. He gets there, he risks his life. The chief of the city tries to kill him. He has to do some accountings for few years with Ketavai that he has no interest in whatsoever. He does all that, and when he comes back to Satguru Maharaj, he does not even respond. He doesn't even say a word when Prananath keeps begging, keep asking, please tell me what I did wrong. Please tell me what mistake that I made, that you are not happy with me, that you are not turning toward. Dear Sundar Satsi, Mahamati Prananath says, "Na jane is झुंड में कौन सुहागी न होए." We do not know which soul has the spirit of Paramdham's consort. We do not know who the consort of Paramdham is in this world. The consort could be in anyone. And if we intentionally or inadvertently hurt their feelings, would not the gate of Paramdham be closed for us? For that matter, Prananath says, "Mere meethe bole Satji." That's why you should always speak nicely to others. You should never hurt others. You should always be truthful. You should always be humble. Humility is the virtue of the consort of Paramdham. If you look at the book of Kalash, revealed by Mahamati Prananath, that's the fourth book among the 14 books compiled in Tartam Sagar, in the book of Kalash, where he lists out the features, the characteristics of the consorts. He says, "Reheve nirguna bhoike aur aharavi nirguna, safa dila suhagani kavahuna nirthave kinna." The consort of Paramdham have the pure heart, purest of the hearts, and they never hurt anyone at all. Dear Sundar Satji, we should always be truthful, we should always be honest. And when someone tries to undermine us, someone tries to undermine our values, even then, Mahamati says, "Koi deta ka sala tumko tuma bhala chahiye tine." even in that case, you should think good about them. You should wish the best for them. Because as we know, we never know who has the spirit of one of those consorts. Because if I hurt your feeling, for example, if I hurt your feeling, then I won't find myself in your heart. You will always remember me as your enemy, but you will always remember me as a bad person, but I won't have any space in your heart. Prananaji is none other than the Lord Supreme Himself. So Satguru Maharaj is trying to reside in his heart, and he is hurt. His feelings are hurt. His heart is shattered. In that case, how could Satguru Maharaj get into the heart of Prananaji? There is no space. That is why Satguru Maharaj calls upon Maharaj Thakur, Prananaji, ask those associates, Bihariji, Balbai, and all these other people to invite Prananaji so that they could find that lost connection yet again. So, on the year 1712, Prananaji finally comes. He bows down, and when he bows down, those 79 letters that Satguru Maharaj and other Sundar Shahji had written to Lord Sri Krishna fall from his pockets. So actually, those letters that Sri Krishna had written had gone to Prananaji, the Lord Supreme Himself. As we know, Dhaniji ko josh, Atama dulahina noora hukuma buddha mula vatana, ye paanchon mila bhai Mahamata veda kateva pahuche sarata. Mahamati Prananaji has all the powers of the Lord Supreme residing within him. As such, Lal Dasi, when he talks about the coming of Prananaji in this world, says Pragati Sri Raj in 1675, the Lord Supreme arrives in this world in the name of Maharaj Thakur. So those 79 letters come out of Prananaji's pockets. He greets Satguru, he bows down and tells him, Satguru Maharaj Pranam, here I am. Satguru Maharaj feels really, really happy that finally Maharaj Thakur Prananaji is there. And when he knows that those letters fell out of his pockets, he realizes that Prananaji, Maharaj Thakur would be the one who would take the charge, who would succeed him in awakening those 12,000 souls. संबत 1712 श्रावण बदी अष्टमी मिलाप श्री देवचंद्रजी सो कहो बात जमे श्री महामती कहे साथ जी ये नौतनपुरी की बीतक याद करो इन समय को शोभान देव सब सकत. So after 9 years of separation, Prananaji comes and Satguru Maharaj finds himself in a state of comfort, contentment. नाम सुनत मिहिराज को बड़ो जो पायो सुख पूछा श्री मिहिराज आए तुम बात करने लगे मुख दई दिलासा नर मिशे मुख ते कहे सुख न में बहुत बेर याद किया तुम तरफ पठाए. So Satguru Maharaj said, I sent Balbai and Bihariji and others. I remembered you. I called you. And finally you are here. I'm so happy. And Guruji usually says that he tells him, as soon as Mahamati Prananaji comes to Satguru, he gives the reasoning why all this happens. The separation for 4 years after he comes back from Arab. We came to witness the game of suffering created by Akshara Brahma. So as soon as Satguru Maharaj, Prananaji wants to tell the whole lot of stories about his experiences in Arab and what he did after Prananaji, after Satguru Maharaj did not accept his salutations. But as soon as Satguru Maharaj sees Maharaj Thakur in 1712, all this that happened, Satguru Maharaj just cleared everything with 2 words. He said, Maya ko dekha. The Prananaji has a lot to say, but as soon as Satguru Maharaj uttered these 2 words, Maya ko dekha, Prananaji had nothing to say. Because he knew all along, he was told all along that we came to witness this game of suffering. We asked for suffering from Sri Raji Maharaj in Paramdham. We didn't know that it would be so painful. We didn't know that it would hurt us so bad, but that is what we asked for in Paramdham. We told him, Hey Raji Maharaj, we want to witness the game of suffering created by Akshara Brahma, imperishable, infallible Brahma. And Raji Maharaj declined it 3 times. Mane kiye humko tina bera. But we continue to ask for this. So as soon as Prananaji gets to Satguru, Satguru says, Maya ko dekha. Have you witnessed Maya? This is what Maya is. This is what we ask for in Paramdham. Oh, Prananaji realized, oh Lord, all this was, all these experiences, all these heartbreaks, it was designed by the Lord Supreme. तब जवाब मिहिराज ने दिया श्री देवचंद्र को था काम लौकिक का डाला गले और किने मोको बुलावने का किने न कया बचना तब मैं सुना सुकन्ना तब देखी का रोशन. Prananaji replies, nobody told me that you were actually calling me. Nobody actually told me that you wanted me here in Mountain Pranam. But as soon as I knew, I resigned and came directly to you. अब तो फिर के न जाओगे लौकिक काम हो कर. Satguru Maharaj asked Prananaji, now you won't go work as a minister again, would you? You would not be engaged in worldly affairs, would you? Now that you've come to Nautanapuri Dham in the service of Raji Maharaj, would you go again? Would you engage in karmic work again? Would you engage in worldly affairs again? Because you are the one, Maharaj Thakur, you are the one, Indravati, that is to awaken the remaining souls of Paramdham that are still lost in this worldly illusion. Mahamati Prananaji promises Satguru Maharaj that he will not go engage in worldly affairs again. He won't do any worldly jobs again. He would totally dedicate his life in the service of Raja Maharaj, in awakening other souls. Satguru Maharaj finds his heart content with his response. Ab to bhala bhaya tuma aaya jo. It feels great that you've come back. Moko ati sukha upaja, aba main hukm karat. I felt so happy that you finally come. Now I ask you to awaken, take the lead, take the charge of awakening souls, because it's about time for me to leave this world to be with the Lord Supreme and Paramount. So, and Gujarat, it's a tradition that people share their meal on the same plate because for them, it is the way that you find closeness, you find the bond with other people. Phera thala prasada so bharaye ke dharaya aage aana tab Shree ji ne kiya Bihari ji ka sanman. And Prananath ji asked Bihari ji to join the feast, join the meal. Aao Bihari ji tumma baitho mujhe bhele, he says, can you come and sit with me so that we can share the meal together? एक कठोर प्रसाद लीजिए बैठक इकट्ठे. We'll share the food together. Why don't you come and sit beside me? तब बिहारी जी ने कहा मैं न बैठूं संग तुम्हां. But Bihari ji declines that offer, says, I'm not going to sit with you. Shree ji ne फिर कहा अर्ज तलबी हुकुमा. Prananath ji asked again. He asked Satguru Maharaj to tell Bihari ji to join him for the meal. Devchandraji asked Bihari ji, what is all this fuss about? Why don't you go and sit with Prananath, Maharaj Thakur, and have your meal? क्या रदल बदल होता है आपस में सही नहीं? You are the consorts of Paramdham. Why are you fighting? You should be sitting together, having fun. तब श्री जी ने कहा बिहारी जी और हम एक कठोर प्रसाद लीजिए, ऐसा करो हुकुम. तब श्री देवचंद्र जी ने कहा क्यों न भेले बैठो तुम, जो महाराज बुला वही क्यों न होता है कार. Finally, after Satguru Maharaj giving an order to Bihari ji to come to go and sit with Prananath ji and have his meal, they share the meal together. इन समय या दिन 22 रहे साथ मिने, फिर नजर करी धाम को साथ सुन समय. So Satguru and Prananath ji meet and be there for 22 days, discussing the next course of actions, how the other remaining souls could be awakened. Prananath ji learned Quran when he finds himself in Europe, learned the secrets. He learned Arabic, so he has some understanding of Quran as well. And Satguru had previously told him that there are some consorts of Lord Supreme in the followers of Islam. So you need to awaken them as well, says Satguru Maharaj. So all these discussions about the course of actions, because Satguru knows that Prananath ji Maharaj Thakur would be his successor. Bihari is not happy with that because he wants to be the leader. He wants to be the next leader of Sri Krishna Pranami faith. He wants to be the leader among Sundar Sats. He wants to be the one giving discourses. So after 22 days, Satguru Maharaj is realizing that the time is near and he is about to leave this world. So 22 days, all these 22 days, Prananath ji is with Satguru. He does not go to his home because it does not feel like home. His parents have already passed away. His sister-in-law, the wife of his brother, is not receptive of him. She is not respectful of him. So he doesn't want to go back to his home. So one night, Satguru Maharaj tells Prananath, why don't you go to your home, to your brothers, to your sister-in-laws, because that's still your family. For small matters, you should not feel that you should not go back to them. It's still your family, they're your brothers, they care about you. Why don't you go to them? So Guru Agya Kariye, Sri Prananath ji realizes that since Satguru is saying, I should probably doing that. He goes to his home, and that very night that Prananath ji leaves Satguru Maharaj to Nautanpuri Dham, to his home, Sambat 1712 Bhado Maso Ujala Pakha चतुर्दशी बुधवार को हुए धन्य अलख. The same night, Satguru Maharaj passes away. 1712 in the month of Bhadra, in the full moon, on the Chaturdashi, 14th day of Hindu calendar, on Wednesday, after midnight, after 12, Devchandraji Maharaj, Satguru Maharaj passes away. So when the next morning Prananath comes to greet Satguru Maharaj, he realizes that Satguru Maharaj had already passed away. He feels so bad. He thinks so lowly of himself that the night that Satguru Maharaj passed away, I found myself in the comforts of my home. I should have been here. Then he started shedding tears, crying, asking Satguru Maharaj to come back to him. वही करती फिरूं और करूं हाय हाय पीऊं बिछुहा क्यों सहूं जीवरा टूक टूक हो ऐसा. Why did I do this? He cries for Satguru Maharaj. He cries for his presence. He cries for his coming to this world again. Why did he leave us? Because he always looked up to Satguru Maharaj. He was his spiritual master as well as his father figure, someone he could look up to, someone he could always go for any guidance. So he was not there any longer. Prananath cries for Satguru Maharaj. His heart breaks. His heart shatters in the absence of Satguru Maharaj. It was intolerable to him. You've left us. How would we survive without you in this world? How? Prananath is so upset with himself, and he's so bereaved not having Satguru around. Dear Sundar Sats. The next day, all the Sundar Sats came together, and they participated in that function. Satguru Maharaj is no longer there. Now it feels like Nautanpuri Dham is not so warm and so welcoming because Satguru is not there. Those lively discourses, those captivating discourses are no longer there. Nobody goes to Nautanpuri Dham any longer. The seat where Satguru Maharaj sat and gave discourse is empty now. Nobody is taking the charge. So it becomes months before Balbai, the sister of Gangaji Bai, realizes that this is not how awakening would be done. Sundar Sats stopped coming to Nautanpuri Dham, and Sadguru's Gadi, that divine seat of Satguru Maharaj, is empty. It is vacant. Somebody needs to take the lead of awakening Sundar Sats. Before Satguru passed away, he always reminded everyone that Maharaj Thakur would be the one, Prananath would be the one taking the lead. But Prananath is lost in the absence of Satguru Maharaj himself. So Balbai comes and asks Maharaj Thakur Prananath, मसनंद श्री देवचंद्र जी की सो तो बड़ी बुजुर्ग सो खाली क्यों रहे देखो हुकुम शामने आपका. The seat of Satguru Maharaj is vacant. Nautanpuri Dham is empty. It doesn't feel like the place of divine discourse anymore. So we should preserve that. We should keep it as there should be divine discourses. Somebody should be sitting on that divine seat of Satguru Maharaj, in that gadi, as we say it. She asked Maharaj Thakur, who do you think should be taking the lead of awakening Sundar Sats? Is it okay if we place Bihariji in that seat? Although Satguru Maharaj had always said that mere piche Indravati, mere piche Maharaj Indravati haath jagane. It would be Indravati, Maharaj Thakur, it would be Prananath who would be taking the lead of awakening Sundar Sats when I am gone. Balbai comes, asking for Prananathji's grace, asking for Prananathji's approval, consent in making Bihariji the next successor of the faith. Dear Sundar Satji, a lot of religions in the world have been divided into many sects, divided into many groups. Christianity into Protestantism and Catholicism, Islam into Sunni and the Shias, and many other religions in the world were divided because they did not know, they could not figure out peacefully who the next successor would be. The Sunnis and Shias, the Islam was divided into these two sects because they could not come up with a solution that who should succeed Prophet Muhammad. Isn't that the case? Christianity was the same. It is not the philosophical differences. It is not the differences in ideas. It's not the differences in beliefs that these religions get divided into many different sections or many different groups. It is because of the disagreement about who should take the lead, who should become the leader of the faith, of the religious tradition. Because the leadership comes with a lot of power. They have control over a lot of things. It comes with great power over all the mass, millions of followers, billions of dollars in revenue. There is so much going on. So Prananathji realizes that if he forces upon being the successor, to the chagrin of Bihariji, then it may not be good for the faith. So he said to Balbai, I'm okay with Bihariji being the next successor. I do not want that leadership. I will let him be the leader. I'll let him awaken the souls. Because deep down he knows that Bihariji is not the right person to take the lead. From behind, from the back, he is willing to awaken souls, but he wants no discord between any Sundar Sats. Bihariji is the son of Satguru Shree Devchandraji Maharaj. If he is not given that position, if he is not given that leadership, the faith may have some bad times ahead. So he doesn't want that to happen. And he says to Balbai, I'm very, very happy that you asked me this question. I'm happy that Bihariji is given that divine seat of Satguru Maharaj, that leadership. So on tomorrow's discourse, we talk about Bihariji's ascents, Bihariji being the leader of Sri Krishna Pranami faith, Prananathji's consent and giving him that leadership, and the events following that. We'll probably talk about the divine revelations that come through Mahamati Prananath when he is put in prison in Habsa, where the divine revelation of Ras, Prakash, and Sataritu come through him. Thank you all so much for joining today, and I wish you all a happy, happy Sri Krishna Prakatyotsav. It's not the birthday of Sri Krishna basically for us, for Sundar Sats. It's the Prakatya, it's the advent, it's the coming of Sri Krishna into this world. He was not born. The Lord Supreme was not born. The one that was born was Lord Vishnu incarnate. So it's the Prakatya, it's the arrival, it's the advent of Sri Krishna, and I wish you all the happy Sri Krishna Prakatyotsav. It is the day Lord Supreme came to this world to awaken the lost souls of Paramdham, the forgetful souls of Paramdham, and we should always be grateful to our Lord, to Sri Krishna, for reminding us again and again that He is our Lord and we are His. So long as we maintain that relationship, so long as we listen to His calls, so long as we answer His calls, He's always there for us. So may Lord Sri Krishna bless us all with His bountiful grace and mercy. Happy Krishna Prakatyotsav. Pranam.